Reading will take you far in life. It will improve your ability to articulate. Those that are most successful in their lives are most likely readers. There is no better way to improve your vocabulary and your ability to come across as a true leader than reading. Reading does not have to be difficult, as we will share. If you want to become rich, successful in your career, influential in your social circles, and literally be popular among your friends, you will want to embrace reading. Reading is the number one factor between the difference of having a career on the front lines or ascend easily into management. Your ability to express yourself and capture others' attention and admiration is directly tied to your proficiency in speaking, which is in direct proportion to how much you read. Even celebrities, professional athletes, and famous recording artists are where they are, not solely on their talents, but their ability to communicate effectively. The poorest of the poor are those that pursue those kinds of aspirations without the ability of speaking up for themselves, being able to read contracts, wade through the fraud and dishonesty of those willing to capitalize on your talents without you. Why do you think that actors want to become directors, athletes want endorsements and broadcasting careers, and musicians want to become producers? Because in these short-lived careers need somewhere to land and take control of their lives and destiny. There are millions of cases of dead-end poorhouses for these career types compared to those that last, become famous, and evolve onto other things. Do not let the stars in your eyes lead you to a road of ruin. Reading and communicating is the difference between control of your destiny and being taken advantage of and thrown away at an early age. Now let us dive into the practice of reading. I will share with you a few techniques and tricks before you even start to read page 1 of the contents of your book. You can take these or leave them, but they do help you get into the mindset of reading. I only have a first-person account of what has allowed me to take a book, literally read it overnight, and pass any test required. I do not encourage the overnight last-minute step, but it is how I started, and with going to a university, being involved in Greek life, working a full-time job to support myself, I had to figure out a way to get through school in the most efficient way possible, regardless of the constraints, and that is what I did. What I regret today is the fact that I missed out on so much by shortcutting, and my biggest regret is the lack of ability to articulate for most of my career and life, and having to go back to reading, which I learned to love, to overcome that hurdle today. As a student, your ability to form a habit of reading is the number one factor determining how successful you will be in life. This includes your ability to communicate, management potential, ability to persuade and influence others, and your proficiency in building relationships and making friends, all of which will factor in your success into your life. Articulation is what draws people to you, and its innate captivity of their respect and awe of your leadership skills. The following techniques may or may not work for you, but I will share them regardless. They are not necessarily a requirement for reading, but feel free to let me know if they work for you. Here are my recommendations on what to do before you read. Number 1. Good sleep. Number 2. Low-carb diet. Number 3. Take care of allergies and environmental factors. Number 4. Good hygiene and taking a shower prior to reading. Number 5. Minimize every distraction. Number 6. Framing your book before diving in. Psyching yourself up. Number 7. Intentionally stepping away, but not for good. Let us go into these in more detail. Number 1. Good sleep. What this means is not too much or not too little. Being a young person, there is a misunderstood desire to sleep more than what we require. The biggest factor in this is not developing a regular routine of sleep. Going to bed at the same time and getting up at the same time every single day. Sleeping is a habit. Attempt to get 8 hours, but only use that as a guideline and do not sleep more than this. Staying up late on the weekends is also detrimental to habit. Stay consistent as much as possible, and if you have breaks in this consistency, expect a bit of a struggle to get back to consistency. Being young too also means getting sleepy when bored. Do not let this happen, for taking naps is a killer to consistency. Set your alarm for the same time every morning and do not hit the snooze button. You will naturally be in a haze until you move around and get your blood flowing. Understand this for what it is. When you are in bed, you will naturally fight to wake up. Once you do, you will be glad you did. Congratulations, you added hours to your life you didn't think you had. Lastly, oversleeping is the worst thing you can do if you are depressed. Staying busy equals happiness. Number 2. Low-carb diet but never go hungry. I do not intend to give medical advice, but just in my own personal experience, high carbohydrates make you feel good for short periods of time but immediately drag you down shortly after you consume them. Sugar is at the top of the list, and guess what the food industry markets to young people? Cereals with sugar, fast food, soda, energy snacks, sugary breakfast snacks, Wheat and corn flour heavy foods, sauces with sugar, etc. The food industry knows the feel-good appeal of these foods and exploits young people. They are also the cheapest to manufacture. Do not fall victim to this or you will be dragged down for the entirety of the day. Meats or meat substitutes and vegetables are your best choices. If it says healthy on the label, look at the sugar content. Quote-unquote healthy labeled foods are usually the least healthy, and stuffing these foods with vitamins and minerals, which truly have no impact, does not make them healthy. Lastly, sugar is not always labeled as such, and the food industry gets to cheat a little by not reporting when in small enough doses per serving, which is another misleading practice. If you see fructose, corn syrup, cane sugar, dextrose, maltose, molasses, fruit juice concentrate, you are being tricked. Even toothpaste, medicines, and processed luncheon meats may contain sugar. Lastly, do not simply let yourself go hungry. Eat something before you read. Number 3. Take care of allergies and environmental factors. I will not preach here but simply give my own experience in this regard. I suffered from lack of energy all my childhood leading into college. I had studies done, labeled with fatigue syndrome, and lastly with allergies. I took allergy shots for years with no effect. I had classmates mock me for yawning all the time. I just couldn't stay away during the day, let alone study. I finally went to an allergy doctor that recommended 2 things. First was a saline solution, or what is referred to as a neti pot. He said suck the salt water back into your sinuses until they fill up, then spit out through your mouth and blow the rest out of your nose. Second step, put a warm towel over your eyes, closed of course. Hold it in place until your skin gets slightly red. You can also try ice packs. When I tried this once I got back home, it was like a miracle, immediate relief. I do this religiously to this day, once in the morning and once after lunch. I cannot go without doing it because I'm addicted to the immediate rush of energy I feel. It is truly amazing. Number 4. Good hygiene and taking a shower prior to reading. Another youth point of resistance, but understand that a shower is a good source of energy along with the feeling of being clean as an added bonus. This gets the gook out of your eyes, gets the blood flowing, and improves your level of attractiveness. It is worth the effort. Number 5. Minimize every distraction. Put your phone away, make it hard to find a place to lay down, and find peace and quiet. Struggle with distraction, find a new place. Places that are quiet but with other people, such as a library or coffee shop, can do wonders. Read outside in a beautiful setting if possible. Switch it up to avoid boredom and to keep yourself moving. Number 6. Framing your book before diving in. This involves psyching yourself up. Do not simply open a book and start on page 1. Here are the sub-steps to this one. Step A. Connect yourself and your passions to the book, even if it is somewhat contrived. Visualization of something is a good way to connect. For example, if you like video games, connect that to math lessons. Video game writing is an excellent way to learn math. Want to be a basketball star? Connect that with your history lessons. Relate it to the history of basketball, even if that entails primitive versions of the game. Want to be a famous rapper? Understand that rap is all about articulation, which is the point of reading and writing. Everything is relative in some way. Step B. Find your purpose for why you are reading the material. In Speed Reading by Cam Knight, he states, with purpose, the focus of the mind changes and its awareness opens, often without you realizing. Hence, why new opportunities begin appearing. Of course, those same opportunities existed before setting the goal, but since they were of no interest at the time, the mind paid them no attention. If your purpose is to pass a test, start with a sample test. Envision yourself passing the test by feeling good about how you performed. Visualize an A+ on the test and the joy it brings. Take the sample test and view it as an adversary that you plan to dominate. Mentally yell at the confusing terms and questions and tell them you will be back in for blood. View it as something you intend to conquer and get it out of your path to success as quickly as possible with ease. Tell your test that it is wasting your time that you can be spending with friends and that you intend to get it behind you. Step C. Focus on the table of contents. I will hold off on going into detail because you will use the same techniques in the next section, just applied to the table of contents. Better yet, break down the table of contents into key points or objectives. Sometimes books have these for you, but take ownership of it and make it your own. If you learn about neuroscience, you will understand that learning is about neural pathways that start with a framework. This is something that gives you a bare-bones structure for hanging learning concepts onto as you build the knowledge in your mind. Better yet, memorize the table of contents and objectives. This is not a throwaway exercise because it will help you twofold with learning the underlying material. Number 7. Intentionally stepping away, but not for good. We will go into this in more detail in the next section. I will first share with you a technique for reading a book that works. Obviously, this starts after framing your book as I described previously. At this point, you should be in a mindset of motivation as you and the book become one. Granted, this technique requires a longer process than if you just jump in and read front to back. But unless you are simply reading for pleasure, the goal should be to retain the information over just getting through the book. In the next section, we will look at speed reading to help you get through the book more quickly. So how does this technique work? First, let us go over the steps, then go into detail. Step 1. Lower your expectations. Get comfortable with the idea of not understanding what you are reading. Think of it as simply preparing the book for further reading. Struggle with the concept? Annotate, skip, and move on. Step 2. Read the first chapter. This does not have to be in-depth reading, you can skim blocks of text. Do not try to memorize or struggle to grasp the concepts. Your goal is to simply annotate what is important to remember. Step 3. While reading, use a highlighter and highlight important points. Examples of these include the following: facts, terms/definitions, lists, dates or timelines. Timelines being a list of dates. Statistics, facts with numbers. Hierarchies, simply nested lists. An example of this is sentence structure or periodic charts. How-tos or what is referred to as conditional process flows, same as a hierarchy except with condition points that lead to a path. Equations or formulas. These are actually conditional process flows, just with math. Other tips: if something is puzzling to you, write it down in question form in the margin of the book and move on. If something seems very important, put a star next to it in the margin. Most digital books have similar features, highlighting and annotating. Step 4. Put the book down and come back to it. This is part of the learning process. It is very easy to get flustered from something you do not grasp. That leads to fatigue, which leads to demotivation. The goal is to digest the material in small chunks. Think of it as forced repetitive learning. Backing away and then coming back to something facilitates a memorization that requires little mental work. Do not work hard at reading or learning. It is unnecessary. What is required is a level of discipline to come back. Manage your time appropriately. The shorter the interval, the better the impact, but take advantage of being able to come back fresh and with maximum energy. I will call this progressive learning. With new chapters you come across, I will refer to as fresh content and content preview. Going back to previous chapters I will refer to as content review. Let us elaborate on the coming back practice. When you come back to your book, you will not start from where you left off but otherwise go through your highlights starting from the very beginning of the book. This will take more time but also save more time as an end result. Eventually you will be flipping through earlier chapters so quickly that your time spent each reading episode will be a moving average. If you find yourself rehashing what you already know, flip through the pages quickly until you get to a later chapter that you haven't yet mastered. What you will magically discover is that you start to get concepts, they start to make sense to you. What you read and could not make sense of at one point earlier, will start to make sense. There will be miraculous aha moments. Learning from a book and school lessons in general are accumulative, meaning that what is in a new chapter builds upon what was already learned in previous ones. This happens with later books at later grade levels. These techniques I share will prevent you from the dreaded state of falling behind. Do not let that happen. The worst candidate of this is math. Let us talk about it. Math is a special category that many struggle with. A bit of advice I have for you is this. Learn JavaScript programming. You can do this directly within your browser without special tools or software. The reason why I brought this up is because math is nothing but shorthand programming. It is easy to become disenchanted with math off the bat after seeing formulas or equations, including all of those special symbols and weird annotations. My biggest gripe about math instruction is this: math teachers and learning publications jump right into formulas without explaining the why of their existence. Also, how were these formulas obtained in the first place? What are polynomials and why do we need them? If you do not get help here, do your own research on the internet. Ask your teacher why, but do not expect them to even know. They likely learn through traditional rote learning methods. You do not have to. About those special symbols, remember my previous comments about terminology. Consider symbols as weird terminology for math. Another thing that needs something symbolic to represent something abstract, that is all it is. Also remember my comment on conditional process flows. Those symbols typically represent process steps to getting to an answer. Knowing this and mapping out the process flow on paper will help you master formulas and equations. Here is an example. Consider these as a hierarchy, where each branch in the hierarchy leads to the next step, another branch. Nodes between steps can be condition points, which are a set of conditions that must be met to move to the next step. Do not make it more complicated than it is. Riding in a car to somewhere new, you are presented with a hierarchy, which is an infinite number of ways you can drive. The condition points are the signs on the road leading you to options as to which direction to go. Doing microsurgery as a top surgeon or artificial intelligence algorithms can be represented in this manner. Here is a representation of a much more esoteric example. A very simple formula under the hood but difficult to grasp for many without my advice. You get the secret. Let me share with you another secret, and this is a big one. The hardest part of learning a new discipline, whether it is the medical industry, engineering, law, rocket science, or quantum physics, is wading through and mastering the terminology. Nothing can kill your motivation more than a bunch of terms that are unfamiliar or intimidating. The worst of those are acronyms. An acronym is a type of abbreviation consisting of a phrase whose only pronounced elements are the initial letters or initial sounds of words inside that phrase. With strange terms and acronyms coming at you, likely from those that have a high proficiency in the subject, it is as if those within the body of knowledge are purposely trying to alienate those on the outside. This is rarely the case, and the reality is that in industry, there is a large need to simply name things that have never been named before. Unfortunately, the practice is to name it in a way where there are no conflicts with other disciplines and to make it, and I'll say it with confidence, sound cool and official. What this results in is difficulty in referring to the word quickly or even remembering what the word is in the first place. This leads to acronymic substitutes, and many times, they become more commonplace than the original word. In fact, most do not even know what the acronym stands for. Having said that, in your annotating of new chapters, first try highlighting term definition pairs, with a focus on the terms. Use a special marker color for these, just the term itself. Going back and simply reviewing terms will get you much further and improve your confidence in the subject much more quickly. I'm not going to go into much detail here, because I encourage you to read Cam Knight's book, but I will say this. The previous section will provide the basis for speed reading because you are already doing many of the techniques Cam describes through progressive learning. You just do not realize that until you figure it out. Here are some quick points, also chapters in the book Speed Reading. Learn to read a 200-plus page book in 1 hour, mental performance. Number 1. Consider the material worth taking time to learn in depth. This can be determined after content preview. Some are type of content you really want to spend time on after a few reviews, while others you can speed through. Type A. Technical content. This includes computer or programming tutorials. It also includes legal documents, annual reports, write-ups and policies. Spend more time on these. Type B. Familiar content. Feel free to speed through. Type C. Reading for pleasure. Again, feel free to speed through. Type D. Content based on relevance. If higher relevance, take your time, otherwise speed through. Type E. Foundational content. This is content that sets the foundation for other things you'll learn. Skip in-depth understanding of this can present challenges for further learning. Take your time here. Number 2. Apply space reading. What this entails is letting go of focusing on words and instead focus on spaces between the words. This will get you away from trying to do a word-for-word pace. Here is an example. Number 3. Chunk reading. Same concept but focusing on chunks of words. Here is an example. Number 4. Avoidance of subvocalization. Do not read to yourself internally. As Cam Knight puts it, when subvocalizing, you either say words out loud, hear them spoken in your mind, or move your lips to their pronunciation. Avoid doing this. Number 5. Improve your peripheral scope. Here are what are referred to as Schultz tables. The idea is to focus on the centerpiece but try to comprehend what is in the other cells without removing focus. Here are examples. Here's a more challenging one. And lastly, number 6. Determine sentence structure of paragraphs with focus on the topic sentence. This means recognizing the topic sentence above supporting and concluding sentences. This is a good practice during content preview. Now go read a book and enjoy your newfound power.